Scabies is an infestation of the skin caused by the microscopic mite Sarcoptes scabiei var hominis. The mite burrows into the upper layer of the skin where it lives and lays its eggs. It is transmitted by a person-to-person contact, and therefore household contact are at the highest risk of infestation. Only 20 minutes of close contact are required for successful transmission. Scabies is a common condition found worldwide. It affects people of all races and social classes. Around 200 million people are affected each year. The highest prevalence of scabies is in tropical areas, especially in populations with coexisting poverty and overcrowding. Scabies affect species other than humans, including dogs, pigs, and wildlife. But the disease in these animals is caused by Sarcoptes scabiei var variants, which are genetically distinct from scabies.
Okay, so this is the Sarcoptes scabiei var minis. His taxonomy is from the animal kingdom. His phylum is Arthropodae. His class is Arachnidae. His subclass is Acari. His family Sarcoptidae. His gender and species is Sarcoptes scabiei variation hominis. And this Sarcoptes scabiei var minis has four main stages. These four main stages are eggs, larvae, nymphs, and adults. So the eggs, their timeline is between 2 to 3 days, and they have an oval shape and a round end that measures between 150 millimeters. The larvae stage, the timeline is between 3 to 4 days, and these are in the balloon shape, and they have 3 pairs of legs that has cups in the pairs 1 and 2. And the nymphs, their timeline is between 4 to 7 days, and they are similar to adults, but they are a little bit smaller. They don't have a sexual organ. So now the adults, their characteristics are that they are spherical and they are eyeless mites with 4 pairs of legs. So they have 2 pairs of legs in the front and 2 pairs of legs in behind. They are recognizable because of their oval and ventrally flattened and dorsally convex tortoise-like bodies and multiple cuticular spines. No demarcation into the cephalothorax or abdomen occurs, and the mite's surface has fold covered with short bristles. So the front leg ending long in process is called suckers, and the hind legs, they ending long in bristles. So the male has suckers, and these suckers are in all the legs except in the third pair, but which it distinguishes it from the female. So the female, it's about a 0.30 to 0.45 millimeters long and 0.25 to 0.35 millimeters wide, and the males, they are just over like the half of that size of the female.
Mode of transmission. Transmission of scabies is mainly through person-to-person direct skin-to-skin contact, and for this reason scabies has been considered a sexually transmitted disease. Scabies is less frequently transmitted by indirect contact through formites such as infested bedding or clothing. However, the greater the number of parasites on a person, as in crusted scabies, the more likely indirect contact will transmit the disease, since the mites are able to live on such surfaces for a period of 2 to 3 days at room temperature, while remaining capable of infestation and burrowing. The mite does not penetrate deeper than the superficial layer of the epidermis, the stratum corneum. A person infested with mites can spread scabies even if they are asymptomatic. There may be a prolonged interval from 20 to 50 days between the primary infection, when the patient becomes contagious, and the onset of clinical manifestations. The female is the one with the ability to infestate. It makes a tunnel where it deposits its eggs. After that, it cannot go outside because it has spikes which are a needle-like structure at the end of its legs that grabs tightly on the tunnel. The entire life cycle of the mite occurs inside the epidermis, and it has 4 stages, which are the egg, the larvae, the nymph, and the adult. It all happens in 14 days. These are pictures to show skin-to-skin contact, show the fomites. It can also be a towel, bedding, clothing, anything with contact with infested person. This is the comparisons in size of the adult mites between the female and the male mite. The female is large enough to be seen by the naked eye. It is about 0.3 to 0.4 centimeters long. The male is half the size of the female. The mite has 4 pairs of legs and crawls at a rate of 2.5 centimeters per minute. It is unable to fly or jump, and at a temperature below 20 degrees Celsius, they are immobile, although they can survive such temperatures for extended periods.
So, what are the signs and symptoms of scabies? One of the most characteristic symptoms is the pruritic, which is more severe and intense at night. The patient can develop these symptoms 3 to 6 weeks after the initial colonization. But if an individual have had scabies before, then the symptoms can appear within 1 to 3 days after the reinfestation. Besides, many people can get scabies rash, which involves hives, pustules, and an eruption of small erythematous papules that has an appearance of knots in a rope, as we can see in the following picture. And basically, scabies can be developed anywhere on the skin, but in adults, the mites rarely burrow into the skin above the neck. So the most common places for the symptoms to start with are in between the fingers, arms, armpits, elbows, and then followed by the buttocks, the genitalia, the belt line, and it can also appear around the nipples. Okay, scabies in children. Infants or babies who are infested with scabies tend to exhibit symptoms of irritability, and it will appear the classic symptoms of scabies, including eczema and rash all over their abdomen, which gives us an aspect of a starry sky. So, in children over 3 years old, they will also present the classic symptoms of scabies, such as pruritic, rash, including the pustules and honeycrust, which will be located in between their fingers, and it doesn't allow them to close their hands properly. In comparison to adults, babies and children under 3 years old can experience a widespread infestation covering a majority of the body. Therefore, developing symptoms above the neck too, including the scalp, the face, neck, palms of the hands, and soles on the feet. We also have this crusted scabies, or it is also known as the Norwegian scabies, which is a severe form of this disease. People who have crusted scabies have hundreds or even thousands of mites in their skin. Crusted scabies develops in people who have a weak immune system due to a medical condition, the elderly, or people who are living in institutions. This kind of scabies develops when the person's body cannot develop any resistance to these mites. Without resistance, the mite quickly multiplies.
Type of scabies. Nodular scabies. It is a common variety of scabies characterized by the appearance of direct nodules. During active infection with sarcode scabies van hominis, the nodules measure 3 to 5 centimeters in diameter. It may or may not itch. It is most often found in the penis, scrotum, and growing in other areas for weeks or months after scabies has been eradicated. About 7% of patients with scabies has nodular scabies. They correspond to a persistent immune reaction. They represent of hypersensitivity to the mite. They do not respond to scabicide, topical or intralesional corticosteroid, tar preparation, antihistamine are recommended. Norwegian scabies, also called crusted scabies, is characterized by a serious infestation of mite, thousands to millions, and is therefore highly contagious. It usually affects immune suppressed patients, diabetic, the elderly, patients with mental deficiency, for example, Down syndrome. The clinical presentation consists of hyperkeratosis, of flaking or large areas of the skin. Itchy can be minimal or absent. Hands or arms is a usual place in injuries, but all sides are vulnerable, such as the scabs and nails. Training is difficult and include several medications, such ivermectin 2000 mg per kilogram, and this patient is recommend to associate keratolytics to treat hyperkeratosis.
Diagnosis: it is clinically established in all patients with generalized and persistent itching, skin scraping, and superficial biopsy. This one is the most used to rule out other pathologies. Differential diagnosis: we have atopic dermatitis, hand eczema, lymphomas, herpetiform dermatitis, papillary urticaria, pityriasis rosacea, psoriasis, and folliculitis. Treatment: for treatment we have permethrin cream 5% solution, 1 application. Benzyl benzoate 20% emulsion 3 to 5 consecutive nights. Cretamidine, also known as Urex 10% cream 3 to 5 consecutive nights. Ivermectin, also known as Tramectol, 200 mcg per kilogram tablets, and repeat dose per week. It's contraindicated in pregnant women. And for non-pharmacological treatment, we have some recommendations such as wash clothes, sheets, and towels in boiling water.
Complications of scabies generally result from vigorous rubbing and scratching. Disruption of the skin barrier puts the patient at risk for secondary bacterial invasion, primarily by Streptococcus pyogenes and Staphylococcus aureus. Superinfection with Streptococcus pyogenes can precipitate acute post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. Common pyodermas include impetigo and cellulitis. The staphylococci or streptococci in the lesion can lead to pyelonephritis, abscesses, and even death. Complications can also result if a scabies exacerbates underlying eczema, psoriasis, Grover's disease, or another pre-existing dermatosis. Prevention. Scabies is prevented by avoiding direct contact with an infested person or with clothes or items used by the person. Scabies treatment is usually recommended for members of the same household. All household members should be treated at the same time as the infested person in order to prevent re-exposure and reinfestation. Bedding and clothing worn or used by the infested person should be machine washed and dried with hot water or hot dryer cycles, or be dried cleaned.
Good afternoon, Doctor and classmates. Today, my group and I have the pleasure to present our speech of pediculosis. First of all, we're going to talk about what is pediculosis, suffering caused by insects of the order Anopleura and the genre pediculosis. They usually present before themselves in dirty person or for sexual contact. They are located in hated skin, body, or pelvis. The epidemiology, the distribution is cosmopolitan, favored by the bad hygiene, promiscuous and migrations. Often they cause familiar epidemics. They go so far as constitution a problem of public health. They affect all the race and both of the sex, and the frequency is lower in African Americans. The pediculosis of the hair is most frequent in students, principally in girls, and the pediculosis of the body is rare in the Occident, but it is observed more often in persons that live in the street, persons that has mental retardations.
Okay, I'm going to talk about Pediculus humanus vercapitis, which is the agent responsible for pediculosis of the head. First, I'm going to talk about the etiopathogenesis. Okay, the color of this ectoparasite is grayish. It measures up from 3 to 4 millimeters, and the females tend to be bigger. Its lifespan is of a month, and females lay around 7 to 10 eggs a day in the hair, which translates to 300 eggs in a month, and these eggs are known as nits. After the first period as a nymph, the parasite matures in 8 days. The development of the 3 stages of it as a nymph is completed in around 17 to 25 days. This is an obligate blood-sucking ectoparasite, and it feeds every 4 hours. And this is when the pruritus begins. This parasite can survive up to 20 hours away from its human host. Generally, you can find less than 10 adults, but you can find from dozens to hundreds of nits. Now we're going to talk about the clinical picture. This ectoparasite is found in the head. It is found mostly in the occipital and preauricular regions, and it is rarely found in other places, but it can be found on beards. Some of the symptoms are intense pruritus, excoriations, and you can also see a lot of nits, but very few adult parasites. Some of the clinical manifestations are due to an added infection like impetigo, painful regional lymphadenitis in the occipital and retroauricular nodes, and you can also find urticarial and macular rashes in the shoulders and trunk. The duration of the infestation can be determined by the distance between the skin surface and where the eggs are.
Pediculosis of the body. Etiopathology.
Pediculosis of the body is a disease that is transmitted by direct contact. Pediculosis corporis live in the fold and seam of clothing. They adhere to the seam, as I see in this image here. Well, they feed on human blood and deposit their eggs and waste on skin and clothing. Lice from pediculosis die with 3 days of datching from the person. Females are larger than males and lay about 30 eggs during their lifetime. In the second slide, as I said, in the previously slide, you can get infected by direct contact with infected people, clothing, bedding, and towels that are from infected people. At the same time, pediculosis humanis can transmit Rickettsia, Bartonella, Borrelia. Clinical picture: pediculosis of the body predominate on the trunk and neck. I can spread to the abdomen, buttocks, and thighs. Papules, hematocrost, and erythematous posts are observed or hemorrhagic, which leave residual pigmentation, and or linear excoriation is also called homeless disease. Itching is severe, and there may be a deep furunculus, which are abscesses that can occur on the skin. Lice cause a severe itching, intense itching. The itch is a reaction to the saliva of the insect bit. In the image here, several mentioned things can be observed. As we see in the image, the skin on the waist and ground can become darker and thicker.
Pediculosis pubis is caused by a parasitic insect. Cirrus pubis or pubic louse is a 1 mm flat insect. It is identified by its white crab-like body. It has 3 pairs of legs that end in claws, which stick to the hair. Their 2 front legs are very large and they look like the pincher claws of a crab, thus the nickname crab louse. It moves at 10 cm per minute, prefers temperature from 28 to 32 Celsius degrees, survives 12 to 48 hours outside humans. Females live 3 weeks and they lay 1 to 2 eggs per day. Location: pubis mainly, perineum. Infestation may spread to the abdomen, axilla, chest, the eyelashes and the eyebrows, also known as pediculosis ciliaris. It may also involve the beard and the mustache. The site almost coexist with other sexually transmitted diseases, such as syphilis, gonorrhea, scabies, trichomycosis, and condylomas. Transmission. Transmission can occur during direct contact with an infected individual, like from sexual contact, or from items like clothes. Signs and symptoms: pruritus of varying intensity, excoriations, and maculocerulia that are small blue dots that measure from 0.5 to 1 cm diameter. They are asymptomatic and they are caused by the irritating secretion of the lice bite.
Diagnosis confers on having observed the parasites with a magnifying glass or to the microscope. The endodermoscopy is known for a parasitic illness, and it is very useful because it allows the diagnosis and even to demonstrate the viability of the eggs of the parasite. The differential diagnostics are blepharitis, dermatitis seborrheica, dermatitis for contacts, trichorexis, trichonductis, and each other.
So now we're going to talk about the treatment. It consists in destroying lice or nits since the transmission is from head to head. Parasites survive immersion in water, but are not transmitted in swimming pools. On the head, it is unnecessary to cut the hair. Natural pyrethrins derived from pyrethrin flowers are very useful. In order to remove live or dead lice or nits, special cloths, hood, combs, scarlers are used. Mayonnaise can be used to facilitate removal with the brushing of the hair. It is preferable to use metal combs and a viscous solution. It is also necessary to give treatment to sexual partners. There are between 17 and 80% of patients who have pubic hair removed, which can decrease its incidence or even eradication by destroying the parasite's habitat. About the pharmacology treatment, 25% benzoate can be used in lotion or cream, applied once and left for 8 to 12 hours, followed by washing for 5 to 10 minutes with soap and water. Then we have the synthetic pyrethroids, such as 1% permethrin or 2% phenanthrene in solution. They are left for 10 minutes or 2 hours respectively, for 2 or 3 nights, and then they are washed with soap and water. It is recommended to repeat the treatment in a week, as there is the possibility that new nymphs may emerge and hatch from viable eggs. Nits are also destroyed with Vaseline with xylol, 25 to 30% acetic acid, or vinegar. It also can be used through metropin sulfamethoxazole 8400 mg orally every 12 hours for 3 days. These have to be repeated after 10 days. During the administration, the itching is exacerbated. 25% benzoate is recommended against pubic pediculosis. Another option is to use cretamitin cream 10% once a day for a week. A thick layer of Vaseline is applied to the eyelashes twice a day for 8 days. Then it is proceeded to manual extraction of parasites or eggs.
Clinical research findings suggest that ivermectin is useful as a treatment and that oral ivermectin is comparable or superior in effectiveness to other topical treatment options for lice infestation, especially in individuals who have experienced treatment failure. Ivermectin acts as a GABA agonist and causes paralysis of the parasite. 200 micrograms per kilogram are administered orally. This is 2 tablets of 6 milligrams in adults in a single dose, which should be repeated 1 week later. And this is always combined with manual removal of the nits. This treatment is not recommended in children under the age of 2 or pregnant or breastfeeding women. There is also a topical presentation which has to be applied for 10 minutes and washed afterwards. This procedure has to be repeated 2 to 3 times. Lice have a waxy coating on the epicuticle, and without this protection, they are more vulnerable to dehydration. For this reason, isopropyl myristate with cyclomethicone D5 in solution allows the removal of 4 cuticular hydrocarbons in the lice in 82% after a 10-minute application, with which favors dehydration and death of the lice. Malathion at 0.5 or 1% in cream or lotion has also shown utility. It is used in adults and children above the age of 6, and this should not be used in babies or children under the age of 2. Dimethicone at high concentrations have pediculicidal and ovicidal properties, which favors dehydration and death of the lice too. Inner pastes or oil lime liniment can be administered locally for itchiness, and this liniment is composed of equal parts of vegetable oil and lime water. It is also necessary to wash, boil, iron or dry clean your clothes or apply insecticides on them. The most used substances as insecticides are DDT and malathion.
Profesor y compañeros, hoy a nuestro grupo le corresponde presentar el tema de larva migrans. El grupo está conformado por Dayanis de León, Milagros Ramírez, Carolyn Tevio y mi persona Jaime Sánchez. Larva migrans, also known as creeping verminous dermatitis, is a serpiginous skin rash produced by the accidental penetration and migration of the nematode larvae. mainly caused by Ancylostoma brasiliensis and Ancylostoma caninum. This penetration occurs in the epidermis. These penetrations provoke erythematous and serpiginous slightly raised lesion. It's more common in tropical areas. Dogs and cats are definitive hosts. The humans are the accidental host. The dogs and cats contaminate the sands and grounds with their infected feces, with the eggs of the larvae, and then the human gets infected mainly because by direct contact provoked by walking barefoot. The time of presentation is between 1 to 5 days. However, there are several cases where these lesions occur months later. Pathogeny. The stage 3 larvae is the infective stage. When the larvae is in this stage, is when the skin penetration in the human occurs. The dogs and cats with his infected feces, with the eggs, leaves the feces in the ground or the sands. Then the cycle comes to the infective stage and repeat. The larvae, when it penetrates primarily, it provokes an erythematous papular lesion. Later on, the larvae starts migrating and leaves an intraepidermal path. This intraepidermal path occurs between the germinative layer and the skin, the cornea of the skin. It means that the intraepidermal path occurs in this area right here. It lacks of collagenous, which means they do not trespass the basement membrane. This is a better image. As I mentioned, the larvae starts migrating in this area right here between the cornea of the skin and the germinative layer. The larvae dies in the human as they do not complete their biological cycle. The incubation period is 1 to 6 days, and the manifestations may appear from 2 to 8 weeks.
I am Pilar Ramirez. I got to talk about in the medical picture of the disease caused by the larva migrant in the skin. The larva migrant affects any part of the body with a predominant incidence in the barat, genital, and hands, and in others in legs and feet. Findings in the medical record. History findings may be as follows: thinning, prickling at the site of pre-exposure within 30 minutes of penetration of larva, intense pruritus, tract advancement of 1-2 cm per day, serpiginous snail-like, slightly elevated erythematous tonus are 2-3 mm wide and that 3-4 cm for the penetration in the site. The tunnels end with a vesicle.
I am Dayanis de Leon. Larva carriers. Agents: Strongyloides stercoralis. Transmissions mechanism. Of course, when there is penetration of larva into the skin. Walking barefoot is one of the most important risk factors for contaminations. In patients with chronic intestinal strongyloidiasis, the rash usually begins in the perianal regions and accompanied by severe itches. Lesions grow rapidly and have an urticarial appearance. The move of to 10 centimeters per hour.
Hi everyone, my name is Caroline Tello. I go and present the treatment. The objective is eradication of the parasite. Ivermectin, adult dose, single dose of 212 mg tablet by month. Children dose, single dose of 200 microgram per kilogram of weight. Itching and lesion subside in 3 to 7 days. Contraindicated in children under 2 years of age, under 15 kg, or pregnant and breastfeeding women. Thiabendazole, 50 mg per kilogram per day divided into 2 doses in 3 days. It can be used in the case of extensive injuries. Topical application, 10% thiabendazole in liquid or cream 2 or 3 times per day for 5 days. It can be used in some lesions that are not very widespread. Albendazole, 400 mg for 3 days. Thank you.
Most human cases of gynecostomiasis are reported from endemic regions in which raw fish dishes like sushi and ceviche are popular, particularly in Japan, Thailand, and Vietnam. But it also endemic in China, India, Philippines, and Malaysia. The principal agent in Asia is Gynecostoma doloresi. Since 1970, it has become an increased problem in North, Central, and South America, particularly in Mexico, Guatemala, Ecuador, and Peru. The principal agent in America is Gynecostoma binucleatum. In Thailand, is the most common parasite infection of the central nervous system, and 6% of subarachnoid hemorrhage in adults. Changes in diet are the main causes of prevention of this disease. The more important factor is where that sushi is eaten rather than eating itself. In Southeast Asia, restaurants they have poor regulation of fish storage. That's why they can have this disease.
Transmission. Humans acquire the infection through the third stage larva. The most common way of acquiring this larva is eat a host that is infected with this larva, for example, undercooked or raw fish or shellfish. It is rare the case when the larva, by its own mechanism, penetrates the human skin and tries to occupy a human as its host. Prenatal transmission of Gantostoma is also possible. Host. Carnivorous and sometimes omnivorous mammals serve as definite hosts for Gantostoma. Canids and felids serve as definite hosts for Gantostoma spinigerum and Gantostoma binucleatum. Pigs serve as definite hosts for Gantostoma Ispidum and Gantostoma doloresi, and weasels serve as definite host for Gantostoma nipinicum. Several members of freshwater copepod appear to be the first intermediate hosts of Gantostoma. Second intermediate hosts are typically aquatic animals that feed on copepods, for example, fish and amphibians, and parathenic hosts are usually animals that prey on the second intermediate host, for example, snakes and bears. Human is considered as accidental host.
As for the life cycle and definitive host, adult worms of most Gnathostoma species reside in a tumor-like mass in the gastric wall. Adult worms of some species are found in the esophagus or kidney. Adult mates and produce unembryonated eggs, which pass through a small opening in the tumor-like mass and ultimately into the feces. Eggs become embryonated in water, and eggs release sheath first-stage larvae. Freshwater copepods, which serve as the first intermediate host, ingest the free-swimming first stage larvae, and the larvae molt twice to become early third stage larvae. Following ingestion of the copod by a suitable second intermediate host, the early third stage larvae migrate into the tissue of the host and develop further into advanced third stage larvae. When the second intermediate host is ingested by a definitive host, the advanced third stage larvae develop into adult parasites in the gastric wall. Alternatively, the second intermediate host may be ingested by a paratechnic host, in which the advanced third stage larvae do not develop further but remain infected. Humans become infected by eating raw or undercooked meat of second intermediate or paratechnic host containing the advanced third stage larvae. In the human host, the advanced third stage larvae migrate in various tissues and may develop into immature adults but never achieve reproductive maturity. They may range in size from 2 millimeters to about 2 centimeters depending on the species and the extent of development. Whether humans can become infected by drinking water that contain infected copepods is not clear.
The clinical manifestation of nastostomiasis on the skin. As you can see in figure 1, there's a migratory eosinophilic inflammation or penicillitis. In the figure 2, the pseudofurunculus is observed, which is a red papule with a brown-scented throat which the larva can come out in a spontaneous way. In the figure 3, we can see the cutaneous larva migrans. The most frequent manifestation of this disease is the migratory eosinophilic inflammation.
The diagnosis of the nature's stomasis is based mainly on the epidemiological history and the clinical picture. Conventional tests, such as the blood count, showed marked eosinophilia and leukocytosis. The parasitological diagnosis can be difficult due to the mobility of the larva. Sometimes a CT scan is needed for the biopsy. Some serological tests that can confirm our diagnosis are immunodiffusion, immunofluorescence, and indirect hemagglutination and ELISA. In the upper right side of the slide, show the characteristic lesion of a patient with natostomasis, while the picture below shows a biopsy performed in the same patient, where we can see eosinophilic infiltrate in the dermis where the parasite was located. For the treatment of this pathology, we can use drugs such as ivermectin and albendazole. However, the patients may have relapses. Despite all, the most effective treatment is the surgical removal of the parasite. However, this technique is difficult to perform due to the migratory nature of the larva, as I mentioned before.
Hello, Professor and classmates. From this point on, we're going to talk about leishmaniasis. My name is Lisa Lai from group number 2. So, leishmaniasis is a parasitic disease that is found in parts of the tropics, subtropics, and southern Europe. Leishmaniasis is caused by infection with Leishmania parasites, which are spread by the bite of infected sandflies. There are several different forms of leishmaniasis, including cutaneous leishmaniasis, which causes skin sores, visceral leishmaniasis, which affects several internal organs, usually the spleen, the liver, and the bone marrow, and also mucocutaneous leishmaniasis, which affects mostly the nose area. And the etiology of this parasite, it has a etiological agent, which is a protozoan. It is divided in two life cycles: the promastigote, which includes the infected stage. It will multiply and develop in the digestive tract of the insect that transmitted, in this case sandflies, and the mastigote, which is the stage in which it replicates. These are the different types of leishmaniasis that are in the for example, cutaneous leishmaniasis is found in the Old World, Asia, India, Mediterranean, China, and Africa, and these are the
species found, the Leishmania parasites, in Central and South America. It is the New World, and we have Leishmania brasiliensis, Leishmania mexicana, Leishmania amazonensis, and Leishmania panamensis, and the other ones mentioned. And Leishmania panamensis is one of the types, of the most important types of Leishmania parasites found in Panama. Then we have the Leishmania visceral. The visceral leishmaniasis in its different Leishmania parasites. For India and Africa, Leishmania donovani. For Mediterranean, Leishmania infantum. For America, the Leishmania chagassi, Leishmania amazonensis, and Leishmania tropica. For the cutaneous leishmaniasis, we have the Leishmania brasiliensis for Central and South America. The reservoirs will be cats, felines, cats and any types of felines, rats, dogs, horses, and the animals mentioned below. Now the pathophysiology of the leishmaniasis. So leishmaniasis is transmitted by the bite of infected female phlebotomine sandflies. The promastigotes of the insect will reach the puncture wound and phagocytize by macrophages and other types of mononuclear phagocytic cells. The promastigotes from these will transform in these cells into the tissue stage of the parasite. In the next stage, it will multiply by simple division and proceed to infect other mononuclear phagocytic cells. From this place, it will go to the different parts of organs or maybe the skin. The parasite host and other factors affect whether the infection becomes symptomatic and whether it is cutaneous or visceral leishmaniasis. Then, the sandflies become infected again by ingesting infected cells during blood meals. Inside the sandflies, it is when the mastigotes form. The replication stage will transform into promastigotes, which is the infected stage. And this is kind of the life cycle of the Leishmania parasites. Now, we have the pathology that is found mostly in cutaneous leishmaniasis because it is the thing that most that interests the dermatology the most. For example, in figure 1, it will be we'll see the epidermis may be either ulcerated with marked secondary changes and epidermal reaction, or alternatively, the epidermis may be quite unremarkable and overlying a dense dermal infiltrate. In picture figure number 2, the infiltrate is typically dense and contains predominantly histiocytes. Other acute inflammatory cells are usually difficult to find unless there is ulceration and secondary changes. The infiltrate may surround neurovascular bundles akin to lepromatous leprosy. The next one, the figure 3, the Leishmania organisms are typically easy to visualize on routine of H and E sections. During the earlier stage of the disease, may be difficult to find late in the disease where there is resolving granulomatous and sclerotic inflammatory pattern. In early stages of leishmaniasis, numerous mastigotes typically distain histiocytes and impart quite a characteristic diagnostic morphology. Now, to talk about the different diagnoses, we have the Giemsa stain lesion smear of biopsy scrapings or impression smears, where mastigotes are observed as round or oval bodies from 2 to 4 micrometers in diameter. The agent is important for the diagnosis of leishmaniasis because one can observe the promastigote phase of the parasite. In the most common samples used are the splenic or bone marrow aspirates. The presence of mastigotes can also be determined in other samples such as liver biopsies, lymph nodes, and buffy coats of peripheral blood. The PCR, which is the polymerase chain reaction, consists of the amplification of the DNA region of the parasites using oligonucleotides sequence that function as indicator as the extensions of new DNA chains amplifies. Other test is the indirect fluorescent antibody test, IFAT in English and FII in Spanish. The test is based on detecting antibodies which are demonstrated very early stages of infection and are undetectable 6 to 9 months after the cure. If antibody persists, it is indication of a probable relapse. 96% of the time, it is sensitive and specific 98% of the time. The Montenegro reaction, it consists of an intradermal application. As we can see a picture, the person is applying the intradermal of a solution containing antigenic preparation of rheumatoid forms of Leishmania. The result should be evaluated within 14 hours of the ballpoint pen, being positive if the papule form is equal or greater than 5 millimeters. It is important that the test is applied in one of the first bites, in the first bite of the sandfly. Finally, we have the histopathology of the Montenegro diagnosis. For example, in picture number A, we have a positive Montenegro skin testing reaction presenting moderate inflammatory infiltrate in dermis. In number B, we have the CD4 plus positive T lymphocytes that are the ones in the arrows. In a positive also Montenegro skin testing reaction. Number C will be scarred B lymphocytes also in the arrows in a positive Montenegro skin testing reaction. Now number D, letter D, will be a disinflammatory infiltrate in a cutaneous leishmaniasis lesion. Number E will be CD4 plus T lymphocytes, the one in the arrows also, in a leishmaniasis lesion. And number F, in a leishmaniasis, it will be B lymphocytes in a leishmaniasis lesion.
Hi, my name is Lerna Gonzalez, and today I will be talking about localized cutaneous leishmaniasis. It's the most frequent form of leishmaniasis, and it produces cutaneous lesions, especially ulcerous ones in exposed areas of the body, which leaves scars for life and cause severe disabilities. Topography. It is located predominantly in upper limbs in 60% of the cases, following in order of frequency in the auricular pavilions in 30% of the cases, the face and the trunk. The morphology. It is usually a small nodule that evolves into a single oval ulcer with a diameter of 1 through 10 centimeters with high edges and easy bleeding. The evolution of the lesion outside the auricular pavilion can heal spontaneously in few months or years, except inside the auricular pavilion where it's chronic and there is progressive destruction, producing mutilations described as úlcera de los chicleros, as you can observe in the image over here. The period of incubation goes from 1 to 6 months. It begins with a macula at the side of the sting that lasts 1 or 2 days. Then the macula evolves into a papule lasting about 4 days. The lesion continues to grow and develops into a nodule, which is a dermal mass containing macrophages with abundant Leishmania parasites and lymphocytic infiltrate. Between 2 or 3 weeks, it grows in size. Necrosis occurs in the center of the granulomatulous reaction induced by the immune response, resulting in an ulcer, which is painless, rounded, clean background, pinkish color, granular tissue, and hardened edges.
Hi, my name is Maria Alejandra Silva and I'm going to talk about leishmaniasis mucocutaneous. In leishmaniasis mucocutaneous, the injuries can lead to partial or total destruction of the mucous membranes of the nose, mouth, and throat cavities and surrounding tissues. This disabling form of leishmaniasis can lead to suffer of being rejected by the community. Leishmaniasis mucocutaneous cases are focused in South America, especially in Brazil, Paraguay, Ecuador, Bolivia, Peru, Colombia, and Venezuela. 90% of the cases occur in Brazil, Bolivia, and Peru. In Ecuador, many of the cases seem to be focused in the Amazon region. Leishmaniasis mucocutaneous comes out in several months or many years after the cutaneous form has healed. Leishmaniasis mucocutaneous development is similar to the cutaneous leishmaniasis, and the two infections can occur simultaneously. Leishmaniasis mucocutaneous occurs when cutaneous lesions expand to the mucosal region or through metastasis. Moreover, it is not uncommon for leishmaniasis mucocutaneous to develop many years after the recovery of an initial lesion, as I already mentioned. It's hyperergic and do not heal spontaneously. Here you can see more images of leishmaniasis mucocutaneous and how it developed.
Good afternoon, Dr. Joel. My name is Martin Silva and I am going to present to you the visceral leishmaniasis. So, visceral leishmaniasis or Kala-Hazard disease is a tropical disease which occurs mostly in Asia, Africa, and Southern Europe. Kala-Hazard disease is carried by insects that are found along the rivers. The disease is probably caused by sandfly, most likely Phlebotomus, which carried a parasite called visceral leishmaniasis. So the name Kala-Hazard means the black disease, and this is because in many cases the skin may be peculiar to a gray color, especially on the feet, abdomen, and hands of the patient. The hair may fall out of the patient and is said to have bleeding from gums and nose. So for the usual signs and symptoms, we have usually high fever with vomiting or chills lasting up to 2 to 6 weeks or vice versa. The spleen usually enlarges, followed by the swelling of the liver. The patient condition apparently improves and it gets worse and worse every day, followed by fever and swelling of the spleen and liver again. After some months, there may be fever-free, followed by persistent low-grade elevation of body temperature, and the patient becomes thin and anemic and with a large descended stomach or abdomen. So this disease usually lasts for several years and the white blood cells are greatly reduced. And therefore, this makes the patient vulnerable to infections such as bronchial pneumonia and ulcers of the mouth. And this commonly affects children. So, thank you.
Hi, my name is Maria Bernaza and today I'm going to talk about diffuse cutaneous leishmaniasis. It is a severe and antigenic form of the disease that due to the direct effect of the parasite or an underlying immunological conditions prevents the host from responding adequately to infection. Frequently, it is caused by Leishmania mexicana and Leishmania atopica. Covers almost all the skins with the exception of the scalp, armpits, palms, and soles. It predominates in exposed areas, cheeks, pinnae, ciliary regions, and extremities. There may or may not be ulcers. They present infiltrated nodules and plaques with a smooth or warty surface, a reddish-brown color, and a firm consistency. Sometimes it manifests itself accompanied by lymphedema, lymphadenopathy, and fever. You can see pictures about diffuse cutaneous leishmaniasis. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pilanis Iturralde.
Before considering treatment, the first step is to make sure the diagnosis is correct. Everything looks alike but nothing is the same. It must be done under medical supervision. Localized form. Pentavalent antimonials, meglumine antimonials are used and administered intravenously or intramuscularly. 20 milligrams per kilo per day for 20 to 28 days. They are contraindicated in people suffering from renal, hepatic, and cardiac insufficiency, and in those affected by tuberculosis. Oral form: fluconazole 200 milligrams daily for 6 weeks and ketoconazole 600 daily for 6 weeks. Plastic surgery may be needed to correct possible disfigurement of the skin due to the source in cutaneous leishmaniasis. Also, cryosurgery and weekly treatment of 2 freeze pulse cycles for 10 to 28 seconds until healing. Rarely, patients with drug-resistant viral leishmaniasis may need to have their skin removed. And here we can see a surgical reconstruction after a destruction by leishmania.
Hi everyone, today I'm gonna talk about bedbugs. Characteristics. Bedbugs are insects of the order of Hemiptera, family of Samsidae. We know 4 genders: Simex, Leptosimex, Isagus, and Hemostisophone, and 91 species, but of them just 3 of them can affect the human: Simex hemithyrus, Simex lectolyrus, that is the most common, and Leptosimex bueri. They don't have wings. They have an oval shape, and they count with 5 to 6 millimeters of longer when they are not feeding. In their mouths, they have mouthpiece that let them bite and suck the blood for feeding. In the stage of a nymph, they have 5 stages. The most younger of them have a 1 millimeter of size. The insects have 3 phases to biological development: egg, nymph, and adult. The female is more bigger than the male. The duration of the life cycle can be until 4 to 5 weeks. In these 4 to 5 weeks, they use 6 days to put eggs. And these 6 days they put 6 to 10 eggs per day, and in their entire life they put 5,040 eggs. The eggs give birth until 4 to 12 days. And they original the first nymph. This nymph passed like 6 to 8 weeks feeding herself to pass to the next stage. Okay, etiology and epidemiology. The bedbugs can live in anywhere, but they like mostly the messy place. The old furniture is a great place for the bedbugs. The bedbugs usually are attracted to the human body, to carbon dioxide, the vibrations, the sweat, and the smell. Epidemiology. The infestation of bedbugs affect both sex, males and females, all races, black and white, or younger and oldest people. Mostly they affect everyone. What they eat. They are blood-sucking insects. Normally they feed themselves until the night. Thus cause problems to the humans to sleep. The process of feeding can dure until 3 to 12 minutes approx. During the feeding, they inject different substances to the human body that have anticoagulant properties, anesthetic compounds, and proteins. All those things produce allergic symptoms to the human. As bedbugs feedings, the color of them can change. Okay, bad reaction. The type of reactions can depend of the previous exposition. That's because when the bedbug bites you more than once, can provoke allergic reactions that produce skin manifestations. The injury produced for the bite can be infected by bacterials, and these bacterials cause eczema, cellulitis, or lymphangitis. However, 20% of the people don't present reactions to the bite. Exists evidence that the bedbugs can cause hepatitis B and Chagas disease. Susceptibility of the host. The generic Cimex attacks mostly to animals like birds. CMF virus bite principal to humans, and Celactovirus bite humans but also can bite domestic animals like cat and dog, or farm animals like chickens.
What is bedbug prurigo? Prurigo by insect cutaneous reaction syndrome, isolated mainly by papules and bloody cross, and in chronic cases by lichenification, although it can trigger severe anaphylactic type syndromes. The most involved insects are the bedbugs, Simis lectularius, the flea, and other ectoparasites such as mosquitoes and ticks. Physical exam. Most commonly exposed skin is affected, like arms, shoulders, and legs. Bedbug bites are painless, but pruritus and propergmatis may appear. They are usually larger than 1 cm. Bites are often seen in linear groups of 3, sometimes called breakfast, lunch, and dinner, evident as erythematous papules, sometimes with a prominent urticarial component in predisposed individuals. Clinical. It is characterized by injuries to the lumbar region, thorax, buttocks, upper and lower extremities that are arranged in the following patterns: in pairs, linear, and in clusters. The bite is usually painless, but the saliva depositing the skin induces the appearance of localized urticarial lesions. Multiple bites are believed to induce widespread urticaria. After the bite, hours or days, local reactions occur that can be very pruriginous. The lesions last from 3 to 6 weeks without treatment, and while the older ones heal, new ones may appear. Diagnosis considerations. Sometimes it is difficult to confirm the diagnosis of bedbugs. It details the history of the home environment of the patient, working condition, and presence of pets. It is important to observe and treat any secondary bacterial infection. Differential diagnosis: herpetiform dermatitis, drug allergy, eczema, insect bites, pemphigus herpetiform, and scabies. The prognosis is very well, although these bites can create considerable anxiety and localized and even occasionally systemic reactions. Sometimes, if the bite reactions are intensely pruritic, scratching with excoriation may be complicated by impetus. Treatment. The treatment is based in 3 pillars. The first one, comprehensive explanation of the nature of the condition to the patient. Second, it involves 2 important aspects: hygienic environment measures such as general cleaning of the home, use of mattress cover, washing and drying with hot water, personal and bed clothes. In addition to prevention and eradication of bedbug, apply insecticide in cracks and roof of furniture. Third, symptomatical medical treatment. The use of topical preparations such as zinc oxide paste in enclosed solution of phenolic camphor is recommended. If there is any added infection, an antiseptical or topical antibiotic should be administered. In recent injuries, the use of mild steroids such as hydrocortisone is recommended. Topical or systemic corticosteroids and oral antihistamines such as hydroxyzine and loratadine are given
orally.
Hello, my name is Lázaro Villarreal and I'm going to talk about cutaneous amebiasis. Next. The cutaneous amebiasis is the term used for infection of skin and soft tissue by Entomoeba histolytica, the only pathogenic amoeba in the Entomoeba group. This type of amoebic infection occurs mainly in tropics and most frequently it manifests with dysentery, diarrhea, and liver abscess. Next. The life cycle, Entomoeba histolytica has a fecal-oral life cycle that involves injection of cysts and subsequent development and dysenteric intestinal disease. Then the infection can use spreads elsewhere, usually to the liver or the lung. Cutaneous involved by Entomoeba histolytica is rare event and can occur by direct or indirect mechanisms. Direct infection of the anus of perineal or genital skin can come by spread from the colon and rectum through contaminated stool. Colostomy or abdominal wounds are sometimes affected. Penile involvement results from anal intercourse. Indirect inoculation can be produced by hematogenous or contagious spread for infectious foci in liver or the continued dissemination for scratching with contaminated hand. Next. The cutaneous lesions manifest clinical as painful, foul-smelling uterus covered by gray slough in genital and perineal areas. Large exophic ulcers can develop. The ulcers covered by gray slough and have a peculiarly unpleasant smell. Large exotic lesion resembling squamous cell carcinoma might develop peculiarly in genital areas. Next, histopathology. In histopathology, we can find ulcer with necrosis, basophilic cytoplasms, granulomatous with no specific infiltrate, central karyosoma, excentric core, presence of parasites in the trophocytes, and abundant polymorphonuclear cells and bacteria. Next. In differential diagnostics, can be ulcerative tuberculosis, venereal lymphogranuloma, inguinal granuloma, squamous cell carcinoma, and large ulcers due to herpes. And the treatment, we can use metronidazole and the use of condom. Thank you.
Cutaneous myiasis. The algae can directly infect by the human, lay its eggs on another insect, and the larva enter the host after the bacteria ingest the blood. It is not treated, the larva can fall into the growth and start again. What is the cutaneous myiasis? Is the cutaneous infection by the larvae of some species of fly. Myiasis is caused by the larvae of Dipterius double-winged fly. Larvae feed on live or dead host tissue, but the substance are ingested food. Three types of cutaneous infection exist depending on the species involved. Follicular and migratory wounds. Follicular. Many of the common sources are known butterflies. Dermatologia hominis of South or Central America is the most common cause in the traveler returning to the USA. The typical symptom includes itching, a sensation of movement. The initial lesions resemble arthropod bite on bacterial furuncle, but may distinguished by the presence of central punctum with zero sanguineous bridge. Diomedes lesions are more common in the face and scalp, and arthropod lesions tend to occur in areas that covered by the clothing and appear in the head and neck. Wound myiasis open wound the mucous membranes typically in homeless, alcoholics, and other people in the poor social circumstances may be infected by the fly's larvae, most often from the green or black blood flies. Migratory. The most common fly are the Gastropilus intestinalis and Hippodore asp. These flies typically infect horses and cattle. The people acquire them via contact with infected animals or less often via direct eggs laying in their skin. Diagnosis of the cutaneous myiasis is made by primarily or clinical appearance of lesion, associated symptoms and travel history. Dermatoscopy, biopsy, and ultrasound B may be helpful. Treatment. The larvae require contact with the air or breathe. Occlusion hide skills. A variety of the occlusive substances have been used: the petrolatum, animal fat, mineral oils, and bacon. Once the larvae have migrated to the skin surface, they can be removed with the forceps, and this can be difficult as the larvae resist extraction. With this spinous, Diomedes is the most difficult larva to extract, and last, the prevention. We need to use the window screen, insect repellent, protective clothing, and put your clothes to dry in the bright light sunlight.
Fungiasis. Fungiasis is a ectoparasite produced by the Flia tunga penetrans, a minor insect of the 1 mm. Get into the skin, producing intense itching and predominantly attacking of the feet. This size is found in the tropical and jungle region of America, Africa, and Asia. It's increasingly rare for the development of the peoples. The use is of the footwear and the floors with the tiles and cement private sphere. Bubbles with the hole that communicates the parasite with the exterior are observed at the flea apparatus inside. In addition, intra-edem and ulceration are observed in the skin infested area. The presence of the secondary bacterial infections and complicate of itching the patent is common. Here I keep a small table where he tells Hughes a little more about how the parasite originates during stage from the first minute of the 6 weeks or several months. The treatment consists of removing the flea with from the skin with pointed object. And prevention is done wearing footwear, covering household floors with a modern building method. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Lidia Alemán. I'm going to present my speech of onchocerciasis. First, what is onchocerciasis? Onchocerciasis is an infection caused by the parasitic worm Onchocerca volvulus, which is transmitted by the bite of an infected Simoleum black fly. Symptoms are subcutaneous, like nodules, itchings, dermatitis, adenopathy, lymphatic obstructions, and eye damage. Eye damage can cause blindness. People with serious infections can generally have one or more conditions like skin rash, eye disease, or nodules under the skins. Now, clinical manifestations: irritation, edema, hypernatremia, thickened skin, papular rashes, a little pigmentation change. Diagnosis: the certain diagnosis of onchocercosis is made by verifying the presence of adult filariae in the excited nodules or microfilariae in the skin biopsies, or seeing them in the anterior chamber of the eye. Treatment is ivermectin 150 or diethylcarbamazine citrate. Now, the prevention. I think the prevention we can use just repellents if we are in the endemic area, or you just wear jeans or boots or something like this. And the people like live in these areas can make something more like fumigations. Thank you.
Hi, Doctor. Thrombidiasis by Catherine Paganini. Definition: dermatozoonosis caused by parasites that penetrate and remain in the skin, such as Eurotrombicula, Alfreduchesi, E. splendidus, and Neochogestia, Euchongastia, Nunezi-Hoffman, transmitted by poultry and small rodents. This parasite caused an itchy rash on umbilicide papules and the trunk and extremities. Epidemiology predominates in infants, preschoolers, and school children who have contact with poultry, rodent grass, or small plants. It is more frequent during summer and autumn, and is related to outdoor activities. Trombicula alfreduchesi live in the southern United States and in South America, the Pacific Islands, and Eastern Asia. It's seasonal activity depends on latitude. In hot climates, its activity is almost all year round and falls when the temperature is below 15.5 centigrade. However, its incidence is unknown in Mexico. In some geographic areas, it is associated with transmission of rickettsia, antivirus, and borrelia. Etiopathogenesis. I can be produced by arthropod phylum mites, class Arachnida, subclass Acarina, order Frost stigmata belonging to the family Trombiculidae, such as Eutrombicula, Trombicula, Alfred Hesse, known in Mexico as Tlaxuahuate, Arot, and Coloradilla, y Splendidus and Eushogastia Nunez-Hoffman parasites of poultry and deformed also rabbit, mice, grass, and grain. They also affect human cross-mine of bears in Rioja, Neurotrombicula inopita, of rodent genus Seiletiella, and of grains. The parasitized cycles consist of larvae, nymphs, and adults. Its activity increases during spring. Females lay 15 eggs in the environment when hatching larvae of 0.021 cm appear with 3 pairs of legs, yellow with red in color, which climb the vegetation to gain access to the host and they look for covered parts. They have hosts and produce enzymes that digest keratin, and they feed on it through a tube called the styline zone. They do not feed on blood. Only Alistair eats parasites of humans and animals such as rodents and pets. Lesions appear within hours in the site penetration, then the inflammatory reaction eliminates the parasite. If they do not bother trying to eliminate them in 3 days, they are come off spontaneously. Treatment is benzoato de benzilo, pemetrina, contramitone. Thank you. Bye bye, doctor.